Okay, from big conversations around the Financial Stability Board to the next economic revolution, the segue couldn't be any better. And I really want to start off with a local view on this issue with Hadi from the Dubai Economic Development Corporation. Hadi, what is the biggest breakthrough that you're working on in fintech with the potential to revolutionize the Dubai economy? I think that's kind of where I want to start this morning.
Well, I can't disclose any secrets or anything that we're still cooking in the kitchen. What I can say is, we fundamentally believe that fintechs can really create a step change in impact in Dubai. And so we always ask ourselves, what is it that impact, what is it that fintechs can do? And so we look at it on a segment-by-segment basis. If you take SMEs, for example, we fundamentally believe that fintechs can actually solve for a few pain points that SMEs are having. Firstly, SMEs today are really struggling to be able to access finance when they need it at competitive prices. And we've seen fintechs, both here and globally, really solve that problem. Today, SMEs represent a low single digit of total corporate loans in Dubai. And when they access those loans, for those that are able to do so, the price is a double-digit price. And so we actually see fintechs can solve that problem, create better accessibility, use real-time data to be able to provide approvals much quicker and at a lower cost. If you look at SMEs today that work with large institutions, they'll typically wait 60 to 90 days before an invoice is getting paid. And so fintechs can really unlock that from a working capital perspective. We look at exporters in Dubai that are really very focused today to export and ship their products beyond Dubai's borders, not just sell domestically. Trade finance can really be revolutionized through fintech, through blockchain, because today it's a slow process, it's a cumbersome process, paper heavy. Yeah. And so between providing access to trade finance and lower cost insurance, and we have one of my colleagues here in the insurance space, I think there are lots of solutions that can be impacted. The final thing I would say is, sometimes revolutionizing, I'm taking the word that you mentioned, is just about doing things better. It's not necessarily about Dubai always being first. It's also about Dubai doing things better. And
I think that's a very important point. And we'll get to some of the steps that you and your team are taking to live up to that and deliver. Stefan, I want to get sort of the view from Finland. Again, you're involved in quite a few roles, but one of the things, of course, is to get the story of Finland and to get the kind of the AI and sort of tech ecosystem developed. Run me through how you look at the world. Again, I think you just arrived from San Francisco just moments ago on a very long flight. Tell me about your meetings and tell me about what your priorities are as you look to kind of break through to new frontiers.
Well, I'm looking at these issues really from a holistic point of view. How does technology change and affect security, foreign policy, trade policy, these kind of issues? So and what Hadi said, everything is involved in that. And what we are looking for in the world is really, I normally say, stability, predictability, and consistency. And we have none of that right now. So how do you prepare for all these black swans that are swimming out there in many different ways? And sometimes I say that you come to a crosswalk in today's world and you look left and you look right, and then you're being run over by an airplane because everything happens so fast. And quite recently I was in Silicon Valley and we met up with the leadership of NVIDIA, of Google, with Apple. And they explained to us also that when you think about all the changes that have happened, the productivity changes, capability changes that has happened within the last 2.5 years after the introduction of GPT models. Within the next 12 months, coming from here, this is going to increase tenfold at the minimum. Tenfold at the minimum. So then we realize what kind of a animal we are dealing with here, really, and how do we prepare to all this, and what the effects will be for the whole world, not only for Finland as a small, agile country normally, but the issues are really, really gigantic. And what I normally say is that even if you are not interested in geopolitics, geopolitics is interested in you.
Yeah, it catches up with you very, very quickly. There's no way you can hide from that. Yousef, in terms of your work at Relm Insurance, and this is a company that serving emerging industries, so you're very much on the front lines of innovation, digital assets in Web3, AI, the space economy, FinTech, and beyond. So maybe asking you about what you think is going to drive the next economic revolution is kind of a question answered, but I still would like you to kind of give us a bit more context about what it is you're working on.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's interesting, right? Because we kind of have to consider revolutionizing in two contexts. Number one, our vision is making innovation resilient. So within our DNA, since we launched in 2019 as a regulated insurance carrier, we've been laser focused on supporting companies operating in innovative sectors. And as you mentioned, we've supported companies globally operating across the digital asset and Web3 ecosystem, AI, deep tech, fintech, and also within the new space economy. And we consider those sectors to be revolutionary. I mean, transformational. Over the next decade, they're going to change the way that we trade, the way that we interact, the way that we access. But that second point of revolutionizing, if you will, is the fact that we operate in an industry that is very much a backwards-looking industry, right? Insurance, as a $6 trillion sector, really only does traditional stuff particularly well. If you are an SME focused on pushing the boundaries of innovation in financial services, not only do you have a hard time getting a bank account, but it's almost impossible to get insurance. And if you look at kind of the bedrock of any sustainable industry over the last 300 years, it's insurance, right? It's the invisible hand that actually drives and supports the sustainability and resilience of so many industries. And so we see it as our obligation, right? Part of our mission of contributing to the building of the future through creating, solutions that enable companies at different stages of growth in innovative sectors to actually build scale and embed resilience into their own business model.
Noor?
Yes.
Like to weigh in terms of your big ideas to drive the next economic revolution.
Sure, thank you. So I like to think of it more in terms of that we're in this really fast evolutionary cycle. And we had Web 1, which was basically just text and Usenet and internet relay chats. And then we had Web 2, which is where we are. And now we're talking about Web 3. And so particularly from my area of expertise, which is financial services across 3 continents and like almost 40 years of working at banks and a little bit of outside the industry as well, is that the infrastructure of the global financial system, which is based on those big pillars of, you have global financial institutions, right, whose basic job is what we call maturity transformation, which is to take short-term deposits and lend them out, right? We intermediate. Then you have these global markets, whether they're stock exchanges or clearinghouses or central banks. Then you have sort of these global products that make up the instruments that we trade in or practice the banking sort of system through. And then you have the international payment systems. So all of these are sort of now poised for massive change because of the underlying technologies that Web3 presents, which is around 24. All the friction points on the banking system that exists today are being challenged by the promise of Web3, which is blockchain or tokenization, which is what it translates to in terms of what the banking landscape will look like over, let's say, an evolutionary 40-year period, is that you have 24/7 access, immediate access. You have immediate custody of the assets and there's global mobility of those assets. You no longer have to wait 3 days or 4 days or 6 days to settle for trades, or 3 months to escrow your house. And then, of course, the most important thing in this part of the world is you have equitable access. So everybody has equal access to banking. And then, of course, you have this rather arcane thing called composability, which is the ability to mix and match different product sets. So these things they've been presaged in terms of some of the things that we've gotten used to. So we've gotten used to with Web3, which is our current state of banking, where we have digital apps, that we've got a bank in our iPhone. We've got the ability to do almost all the things that we would have to get into our cars and go to offices to do. Now we can do online through our smartphones. We've got governments in our phones. We can do a lot of the work that we used to do in terms of getting licenses or getting a passport or being able to travel, you can now do on your phone, but they're still centralized.
Yeah.
We don't own them, right? And so the next stage is where we sort of, in a very nice way, break up with our banks and we break up with the governments and say, it's not you, it's us. We've just moved on. We can do things faster.
And we'll get to some of your other views on the subject in a moment. I want to build on a point that was made by a couple of panelists around sort of building trust in emerging technologies. And I want Hadi actually to weigh in on this for us, just in terms of what is being done here in Dubai, initiatives like Sandbox Dubai, to properly game and test out whether things work, how things can be refined, and then have a deliverable that actually makes an impact. Hadi?
So just to give you some context, we have a 10-year plan that culminates in 2033. It's called D33, and 2033 is really important not because it's 10 years from the time the plan was set, but because it celebrates 200 years of the Al Maktoum family rule. And I want to give that context because Dubai really operates with the founder's mentality as it has been set over the past decades by the Al Maktoum family. And the founder's mentality says, be bold, test quickly, scale quickly. And so Sandbox Dubai is really the initiative that allows us to do that. We took a lot of inspiration from when, a few years ago, we created the world's first independent regulatory authority for virtual assets. And in doing so, we saw that nobody was really globally taking the bull by the horns in virtual assets. We could create a regulatory environment with regulation as Dubai's superpower because we're small enough to be able to adapt regulation. And in the course of just 36 months, we've become a top 3 global regulator in virtual assets. So we said, what else can we do in new sectors where Dubai can actually take a global position that is regulatory first? And Sandbox Dubai was born, and so we are looking at a number of topics relating to mobility, health tech, and longevity in general, the gig economy, where we can create this regulation that allows for testing and commercializing of product. And ultimately, we need the right industry collaboration to be able to actually scale this up. And so, we're encouraging testers of Sandbox Dubai to actually integrate with the large captive market here of local businesses and international businesses, to work with the industries who themselves have industry collaborations. And ultimately, in parallel as a government, we continue to focus on infrastructure development, policy making, attracting talent, and also nurturing talent, so that Sandbox Dubai is a starting point to then open up this testing and commercialization at a larger scale.
Yeah, and I think, I was going to say, I think that lays the groundwork for an ecosystem, right, that is cultivating companies and technologies that are fit for revolutionizing the future. But one of the things that we're sensitive to, having worked with a number of prospective VARA licensees and existing VARA licensees, is that regulatory frameworks are really important, right? They help crystallize the ability for a company to operate in a compliant fashion. But I can't think of a single regulatory framework here in Dubai or anywhere in the world that's going to offer an authorization without the mandate to satisfy minimum limits of some type of insurance, right? If you're a prospective VAR licensee, in order as a condition of that license, you have to be able to satisfy minimum limits of directors and officers liability insurance, professional liability insurance, and crime. And similarly so, I would imagine, with these other innovative and emerging sectors that you're cultivating within the sandbox. Again, not to harp on insurance, but at the end of the day, it's an unlock, right? If we can create accessibility to aligned insurance products for companies that are building innovative solutions and products to help drive this revolution that we're talking about, we see that as an enabling factor. And I think that's a mind shift for a lot of companies that are in the earlier stages. They look at insurance as kind of a punitive or a cost expense, but really we're trying to stand shoulder to shoulder with these companies that are driving innovation and create accessibility to these products so that they can advance their business model.
Noor, I can see you nodding in agreement there.
Oh, absolutely. The infrastructure comment is obviously the most important. None of this happens without infrastructure. And what I was particularly nodding about is the hidden role of insurance as the global lubricant. Credit default swaps underwrite my industry, right? And they underwrite our ability to spread and understand other businesses and to accept that risk in order to be underwriting them. And what I was really, amused by is that I just read the other day that, and this can only happen in the United States, that there's a new form of insurance being offered, to your point about innovation, where you can get insurance for shooting somebody.
It's true.
So, only in America.
What can I say?
Stefan?
No, where to go there really
Well, you don't have to, have a strong view on that particular tangent, but if you want to share another thought,
no, because what I'm thinking about there is always that what is involved in all this, and when you look at there's always the security risks. I'm representing the government, so I always have to bring up that issue about what's happening with crypto or any of the other kind of new assets that come out there. How much do people understand about them? How much do companies really understand how do they work and can they insure against what's happening? The regulatory uncertainty came up, of course, there. And we always have the old maxim, that the US innovates, China replicates, and EU regulates. But do we even know what to regulate is the big issue in so many things. And then it's the scalability. How do you scale these issues so that the general public, all the people, it becomes equitable in a way? These are issues that springs to my mind in these discussions, but above all, really the security risks. And then we start talking about issues that is very close to my heart, and that is digital sovereignty. How do you protect the digital sovereignty and the different aspects of the digital sovereignty from nations? And then it comes to the really big part, which is something that I frame normally in saying that we are now entering the second quarter of the 21st century. Will this second quarter be categorized by a hegemonic battle between the US and China? Or will it be categorized by a hegemonic battle between the national state and tech companies? And who controls the tech companies to the scale? Is it the national state? Is it a supranational regulation? Or what goes on there? So I'm throwing out a really, really big ball. And we have no direct answers because the technology evolves so fast.
I think that's an absolutely crucial point, because when you talk about the polar extremes in the West, the technology firms absolutely do have the at least equal power, almost sovereign power, because they own all the data. Yeah. But in the southern hemisphere, or the global south as they call it, especially in China, the data is owned by the party, right? So they can actually control it and probably put it to more potent use. Yes. But it is absolutely a bipolar sort of model.
Yes.
In terms of creating innovation-friendly economic zones, Hadi, you mentioned D33. I just want to flesh that out in a bit more detail in terms of how you're leveraging AI and blockchain to, create the mark on the global map. Again, double down on it really, because Dubai is firmly on the global map. And I'd love to hear kind of what's in the pipeline and and what else people can look forward to.
So, the role of government as we see it, and of course some governments will have a different perspective, but the role of government as we see it in Dubai is really to create the enabling infrastructure, put in place the right policies and regulation, and to facilitate connections. Our model is a model which is a PPP model. We as the public sector really want to activate the private sector. But that doesn't mean that in certain sectors we also won't lead by example. And so in AI, I think the Dubai government and the UAE government is really leading by example. In 2017, we installed as a UAE the world's first minister of AI. Last year in Dubai, we had 22 chief AI officers across government departments installed with a very clear mandate. The mandate was, this is not about headlines, this is about results. The results being, how can we be more productive? How can we improve interactions across the government? How can we improve engagement with customers leveraging AI? So really the government saying, I want to lead by example and show that I can use AI for good. And in doing so, I think also inspiring a certain upskilling effort. So we have thousands of hours of training that are going across government employees to really train them up on AI and really get them ready for what tomorrow's requirements are. As sophisticated businesses will always ask for more and ask for different things. I think when you look at technology in general as how we adopt it in Dubai Airport is a good example, right? For those of you that are living here, we often take for granted the experience of arriving in Dubai. It's frictionless. The immigration is very quick. You go through these smart gates. We only realize when we travel to other global cities where unfortunately they haven't adopted technology in the same way. And for those of you that visit Dubai, it's really quite a stark contrast between the experience here and the experience there. So Dubai is not afraid to embrace technology. Dubai is not afraid to be bold and be first. But again, it's not always about being first, as I mentioned earlier. It's about just doing it that much better.
The airport is getting really busy though. It is frictionless, I admit, and it's the best international airport in the world, but wow, there are millions and millions, and it's just a lot going on. But hats off to Paul Griffith and the team at the Dubai airports for what they have to come up with to keep up with the growth of the Emirate, that's for sure. I think that's maybe a good opportunity for others to share a couple of thoughts on Dubai, maybe related to the work that you do. The three of you flew in from far away, so,
Yeah, if I could jump in there first, I think, kind of going back to that ecosystem concept. We set up our DFSA regulated insurance intermediary here in the DIFC a year ago, right? And one of the reasons we took that move is because of the ecosystem that is developing here. It's one thing to have regulatory frameworks and entrepreneurs. It's another thing to have government alignment. It's another thing to have investor capital flowing into the jurisdiction. It's another thing to have financial service firms and professional service firms evolving their offerings in support of companies doing really important and innovative things, right? So when you think about Relm as a global specialty insurance company, it's really critical for us to obtain the appropriate authorizations in the most strategically important jurisdictions so that we can support companies that are doing the types of things that we want to insure. And generally speaking, those are companies that are pushing the boundaries of innovation within the sectors in which they operate. And there is a lot of cultivation and that spirit that exists here in Dubai in a way that just isn't necessarily present or equivalent in a lot of other jurisdictions globally.
Yeah, I can build on that. I lived 9 years in Silicon Valley in total of my life, and I normally say that leaves a mark on a human being. Silicon Valley is not a geographical location, it's a mindset. And I think that I see the same mindset here in Dubai, in the UAE in general. And I'm a little bit envious even coming from Finland, the happiest country in the world, how quickly UAE embraces technology. And I think the whole country is just like a gigantic startup, if you would categorize it at that. Having said that, startups, sometimes they fail, sometimes they become unicorns. But it's also a battle of talent. Silicon Valley is so incredibly successful because of the access to talent. You get people from everywhere in the world, you put them together in a place, you add a lot of capital, and they sort of, you churn the whole thing and all the innovations come out there. And now you combine innovation and sunshine and talent, and that's what you have, and that's exactly what is present here as well. What I'm really envious about is Dubai's, how do they attract talent to come here and work together for a common good, and I wish we would have a similar kind of system. So it's really good to keep these things working together to achieve a common goal on this. It's instrumental.
I think that His Excellency is being very modest. I think there's a reason people come to Dubai. That is, so full disclosure, I'm on the board of a company that's been around for about 6 or 7 years. It's called Chia Networks. It's a revolutionary sort of third generation blockchain company that does infrastructure, lots of innovative products. I was asked to join the board. And the reason we're here, along with my colleagues, is that both in Europe and the United States, because of the lack of the ecosystem and infrastructure that you just listed, around the sandboxes, around having a dedicated regulatory subject-specific authority that dispels all the gray areas and said, here's what you can do, here's what you can't do, the prudential sort of regulatory structure, the ability to do plug and play. We were told quite clearly that you can obviously have a North America strategy and a US strategy, but you need a Dubai strategy as well, because this is where the ability to leapfrog is demonstratably on show, because you already have done the work.
Yeah, that's something to keep in mind. The other thing I want to ask is about using AI in strategic decision making, so AI augmented decision making. How many people here are using any of that in their day-to-day meetings? If you could raise your hand, please. It's okay. I don't think this is okay. Quite a lot of people. All right. Did I just raise? I wasn't raising my hand, by the way. I was just saying if you could raise your hand. So let's go around the panel here. Again, coming from different backgrounds, different geographies, and different businesses. I think it becomes quite tricky as you go up the hierarchy. And once you're sort of C-level, board level, do you include AI in your strategic decisions, in forecasts, in asset allocations, in productivity? So I'd love to hear from you again, because we're trying to visualize what an economic revolution is going to look like, and AI is going to be part of that, right? Yousef, I see you're quite keen to answer that, so I'll let you take that.
I mean, to us, this is a fascinating area, not just because AI is being embedded into everything and is going to, is going to shift the way industries operate, but it also, if you think about it from a risk standpoint, the proliferation of artificial intelligence is, causing a whole host of really kind of unforeseen and unfamiliar risks to bubble to the surface. And as AI tools and systems become more embedded into core operations, you have a number of companies globally that are going to be making decisions based off of data sets. And you have tools that are going to be utilized in replace of humans that are going to have good or potentially bad impacts on products and services that are being pushed out into the market. And while I think generally the thought is this is going to be an enhancement from a commercial standpoint for a lot of companies, when you think about it from a risk standpoint, and when you think about the idea that insurance is really good when there's historical perspective of certain types of loss exposures and providing good coverage and protection on a go-forward basis, you have companies operating across virtually every industry sector that are faced with, a lot of variability as to whether or not future causes of loss are ultimately going to be adequately covered by their existing insurance policies. And so one of the areas that we're really focusing on from a product innovation standpoint is how can we build insurance products that speak specifically to the new and emerging risks arising from the use of and reliance upon AI technology and tooling, right? There are major gaps forming, and insurance companies are going to have to come to the table in support and protection of their companies they're insuring.
Yeah, the first thing what springs to my mind is that AI alone doesn't do anything, but AI and a human being is the key to what we can achieve. And there's always the public service automation, and of course, digitalization works when it's invisible. You don't see things happen on its own, and that creates a trust in the society. And when you have a trust, then we have achieved already a lot. But there's also the problem always of it's not only opportunities, there are also challenges, and bias is one of the big things that comes into mind. And we have some really sad cases when social security service decisions have been based on fully automated AI, and has brought really bad decisions. Another, maybe should I call it provocative example, is that you have someone in the US who's applying AI to rationalize government through the Dodge guys who is going there and saying that, this is the way it is. And there's no anchoring in reality on those decisions. So we have also to realize the limitations of AI, and we have to apply the human aspect to everything what we do. It's the human intelligence, it's not only the artificial intelligence.
The issue with AI, the opportunity is that it's changing so fast that it's almost impossible to say that I'm happy with this current state, because in 3 months it changes. Moore's law be damned. I mean, this is Moore's law on steroids. And so what can we humans do, right? So the only thing we can do, to your point, is to establish really well thought out governance systems on how to make sure that AI serves us. And also not just itself, because that may be science fiction at this point, but serves the folks who are currently, the technocrats who seem to be running it, and seem to be running it for some good, but there is, we all sort of suspect that it could be used. Some of the biases that are creeping into the models, how much of that is unsupervised? Yeah. And do we even know about it? So the reason AI hasn't really taken over banking, even though it's been heralded and much ballyhooed, it's because we don't know how those models work, and the decisions we make are very, very important to global stability and global financial flows. So until we can understand, or certain people can understand how these models work around stress testing and movement of capital, there's going to be this need for governance.
But I think, Noor, to your point, there is a need for credibility, right? There is a need for understanding where is this data coming from that's being utilized to make increasingly important decisions. And I think it's a really interesting convergence of two, revolutionary technologies, which is the utilization of blockchain to secure and provide transparency related to data provenance, building credibility and trust
Absolutely.
In the data sets that are being leveraged to make increasingly important decisions.
And that's why I think AI is a component of these blockchains, where because provenance is guaranteed and is observable, and it's permissionless and immutable. So in your industry, in insurance, for example, you have well-established, well-picked over data sets called actuarial tables, right? So I know, and that's back.
Allegedly.
Sorry?
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Okay.
Talk to property cat insurers.
Right.
They would.
But at least it's a well understood area, and it's a little bit backward looking, but you can concatenate it with data to also sort of be forward looking. In the areas that AI is truly astounding us, those data sets are mysterious. We don't know. It's read every piece of text on the internet. It's seen every image, seen every movie, and it's coming up with answers that amuse us at this point, but I'm not sure whether it's right or wrong.
Well, and again, I think that's where it's going to require kind of a convergence of these technologies so that we can build credibility and trust. I mean, you take it to another level physically. I mean, think about all the data that's being accumulated in space, right? Through the proliferation of satellite technology that's, making information more available in higher volumes than ever. All of that data is going to be utilized to make critical decisions back down here on Earth, ranging from, the way our cars automate themselves to defense strategies of national governments.
Yeah.
And the ability for that data to be tied back to a point of origin that is trustworthy, credible, and transparent is going to be imperative. I mean, it is unavoidable that blockchain is going to be integrated into that trust and credibility solution for data and AI.
Yeah. Hadi, some closing thoughts from your side?
Yeah, just to chime in on this very interesting discussion. I'll talk about data, and then AI is obviously the overlay. But fundamentally, we run the economy in a very data-driven approach, right? So if I remind you of our role as a government, infrastructure, policy and regulation, and connectivity, facilitating the ecosystem. On infrastructure, we use data all the time to help inform what infrastructure do we need, where, at what scale, so we can also be future-proofed, right? To your point, what are some of the assets that are burdened today by a lot of traffic, a lot of usage, where actually we need to now start to upgrade or create new assets and new infrastructure. So we use data in that way. We use data on the policy side because it's not just about drafting policy and then not tracking what the outcome is. And so we're regularly looking at what is the cause and effect of putting that policy in place and then tracking what the outcome is. On facilitating connections, for us, we are a very high-touch government. We like to engage with business all the time. When we formulate policies, it is consultative. And so we keep a CRM of all those businesses that we've kept in touch with. When was the last meeting? What did we discuss? I'm sounding like a private wealth manager right now. But we do that. And so we use that data to also help inform, who are we not engaging with enough? And so obviously there are going to be AI use cases that overlay on top of all of that.
Okay, I think that's a wonderful note to wrap up on. It's all the time we have, so a big thank you to our incredible panel and to you as well, super audience. Thanks again.